All right, security fans, welcome back to another deep dive.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Today we're talking all about the fundamentals of information security.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of people hear information security and they immediately think hackers in hoodies,
Right.
the Matrix.
Yeah. Hollywood has definitely influenced our view of information security.
Yeah, they have. They really have. But it's so much more than that, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just about, stopping those shadowy figures. It's about protecting ourselves in our everyday digital lives.
Right. It's about thinking critically about the systems we use every day.
Exactly.
And the data that we share.
Yeah.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty of, firewalls and encryption and all of that,
right.
Let's take a step back and ask a fundamental question.
Yeah.
What does it even mean for something to be secure?
That's a great question, and it's one that a lot of people don't really stop to think about.
Yeah.
We often throw around the word secure like it's this absolute state. Either something is secure or it's not, but in reality, security is much more nuanced than that.
So are you saying that nothing is ever truly 100% secure?
Well, I would say that achieving 100% security is practically impossible.
Go.
It's an ideal that we strive for, but it's not a realistic goal.
So then what are we actually aiming for when we talk about security?
It's all about managing risk.
Okay.
It's about understanding the potential threats, identifying the vulnerabilities, and then implementing measures to mitigate those risks.
So it's not about eliminating risk entirely?
No, not at all. It's about reducing it to an acceptable level.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get caught up in this idea that they need to be completely invulnerable.
Right.
But that's just not realistic.
Exactly. Security is an ongoing process. It's not a destination that you reach and then you're done.
Right. It's about constantly assessing and adapting to new threats as they emerge.
And a really helpful framework for understanding these security goals is the CIA triad.
CIA triad. That sounds a little bit like a spy movie.
Maybe a little, but it's actually a core principle in information security.
Okay, so break it down for me. What is this CIA triad all about?
Well, the CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Okay.
And these three principles, they form the bedrock of information security.
So confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Yeah.
Can you give me some real-world examples of what these principles actually look like in practice?
Sure. Let's think about something we all use: online banking.
Okay.
So when you log into your online banking account, you expect that your account details your transactions. All of that information should stay private between you and the bank.
Right. No one else should be able to see that information.
Exactly. That's confidentiality, making sure that sensitive information is only accessible to authorized individuals.
So confidentiality is all about keeping secrets.
You could say that.
Okay. What about integrity?
So integrity ensures that the information remains accurate and unaltered.
Okay.
So let's say someone hacks into your bank account and changes your balance.
Yeah, that would be bad.
That would be a breach of integrity.
Right, because the information has been tampered with.
Exactly. And to maintain that data integrity, there are tools like digital signatures, checksums, things like that, that help ensure that the information hasn't been modified in any way.
So integrity is all about making sure the information is trustworthy.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay, so we've got confidentiality, keeping things secret, integrity, keeping things accurate.
Mm-hmm.
What about availability?
Availability means that the systems and data are accessible to authorized users whenever they need them.
Okay, so if I need to check my bank balance, I should be able to do so without any problems.
Right. But imagine a situation where a website crashes during a major sale.
Oh, yeah.
Or your email server goes down right when you need to send an important message.
Yeah, that's definitely happened to me before.
Those are availability issues.
So it's about making sure that the systems are up and running and that the information is accessible when it's needed.
Exactly. And just like a physical vault needs all of its components working together, so does information security. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. These three principles are interconnected. They support each other to create a secure system.
That's a great way to put it, the CIA triad. It's a really helpful framework for understanding the core principles of information security.
Yeah, it gives us a good foundation to build upon.
Are there any other ways to think about security besides the CIA triad?
There is actually another model that builds upon the CIA triad. It's called the Parkerian hexad.
The Parkerian hexad. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about that.
So the Parkerian hexad takes those three principles: confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Okay.
And it adds three more: possession or control, authenticity, and utility.
Okay, so it expands on the CIA triad to provide a more comprehensive view of security.
Exactly.
So let's break down those additional principles, starting with possession or control.
Okay.
What does that entail?
Well, possession or control focuses on who has the right to access and use the data.
Okay.
And this applies regardless of the format of the data, whether it's digital files, physical documents, anything.
So, for example, if I lose a flash drive with sensitive information on it,
Right.
that's the possession or control issue.
Exactly. You've lost control of that data, and anyone who finds that flash drive could potentially access it.
So it's about physically safeguarding the information itself.
Yeah. And preventing unauthorized access in any form.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
What about authenticity?
So authenticity goes beyond just verifying someone's identity.
Okay.
It's about ensuring that the information itself is genuine and hasn't been tampered with.
So if I receive an email that appears to be from my bank,
Right.
authenticity is about making sure that that email actually did come from my bank.
Exactly. And not from some scammer trying to steal my login credentials.
Right, so it's about verifying the origin and the integrity of the information itself.
Yeah, it's like a digital fingerprint that proves the information is what it claims to be.
Okay, and finally we have utility.
Right.
What does that principle focus on?
Utility emphasizes the importance of data being usable and accessible for its intended purpose. So let's say you have a database full of valuable customer insights, but it's encrypted in a way that no one can decrypt it.
Okay.
That's a lack of utility.
Right, the information might be secure,
Yeah,
but it's essentially useless if no one can access it.
exactly.
So the Parkerian hexad, it adds another layer of nuance to our understanding of information security.
Yeah, it helps us appreciate that security is not just about building impenetrable walls.
Right.
It's about managing information through its entire life cycle.
Okay, from creation and storage to access, usage, and even disposal.
Right.
Well, this has been a really enlightening discussion so far.
Yeah, it's been great.
We've unpacked some core principles of what makes information secure.
Absolutely.
And it's clearly much more than just, strong passwords
Right.
and those, shadowy figures in hoodies.
Yeah, Hollywood has a lot to answer for.
They really do.
Yeah.
But we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's so much more to explore.
There is, and explore we will in our next deep dive.
Definitely.
But before we go,
Yeah.
make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications
Yes.
so you don't miss the next part of our deep dive into information security. We'll be back with even more insights into this fascinating world.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Stay tuned. Okay, so we've got these principles,
Yeah.
the CIA triad, the Parkerian hexad,
Right.
but just thinking about them on their own
Yeah.
can kind of feel a bit like theoretical.
Right.
Like, how do these ideas actually play out in our digital lives?
That's a really good point. We can talk about confidentiality and integrity and all that,
Yeah.
but when rubber meets the road, how do those principles actually get challenged?
Exactly. And I think that's where the concept of cyber attacks comes in, right?
Absolutely.
Like all those stories we hear about data breaches and hackers and all of that.
Yeah, and it's easy to think about those attacks as just
So even though there are countless ways that someone could try to attack a system,
yeah.
are there kind of common threads or categories that these attacks fall under?
There are definitely some key patterns, and I think understanding those patterns can really help us strengthen our own security posture.
Okay, so what are some of the major types of attacks that we should be aware of?
Well, a really helpful way to think about this is to break down those attacks based on how they target those core security principles.
Okay, so using the CIA triad as a framework.
Exactly. So we've got confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Right.
And each of those principles can be attacked in different ways.
Okay, so what are some examples of attacks that target confidentiality?
Well, one of the most common is interception.
Interception.
Yeah, so that's basically when an attacker gains unauthorized access to information.
So it's kind of like eavesdropping on a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Like if someone is listening in on your phone call or reading your emails without your permission.
Okay, but it's not just limited to personal communications, right?
No, not at all. Interception can happen on a much larger scale, like when a hacker breaks into a company's server and steals sensitive data.
So it's about getting access to information that you're not supposed to see.
Right, and this can happen in so many different ways, from snooping on unsecured Wi-Fi networks to intercepting data as it travels across the internet.
It's like a digital form of spying.
Exactly. And it can be really difficult to detect because the attacker is often trying to remain hidden.
Right. They don't want you to know that they're there.
Exactly.
Okay, so interception is all about violating confidentiality.
Right.
What about attacks that target integrity?
So when we talk about integrity, we're talking about making sure that information hasn't been tampered with,
Right.
that it's accurate and trustworthy.
Yeah.
And one of the main ways that attackers target integrity is through modification.
Modification.
Yeah, so that's when an attacker alters data in some way to benefit themselves or to cause harm.
So like if someone hacks into your bank account and changes your balance?
Exactly, or if they tamper with a contract to change the terms in their favor.
Okay, so it's not just about stealing information.
Yeah.
It's about actively changing it.
Right. And modification attacks can be really tricky because sometimes the changes are very subtle.
Right.
Like imagine an attacker making small adjustments to financial records to cover up fraud.
Oh, wow.
Or manipulating data in a scientific study to skew the results.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
Yeah. Integrity is super important because if we can't trust the information that we're relying on, then it undermines the whole system.
Okay, so we've got interception, targeting confidentiality.
Yeah.
Modification, targeting integrity.
Mm-hmm.
What about availability? What are some attacks that focus on that principle?
Well, availability is all about making sure that systems and data are accessible when they're needed.
Right.
And one of the most common ways to disrupt availability is through interruption.
Interruptions.
Yeah, so that could involve things like denial of service attacks, where an attacker floods a server with so much traffic that it crashes.
Okay, so like making a website unavailable.
Exactly. Or it could be something as simple as cutting a cable or shutting down a power supply.
So basically anything that prevents legitimate users from accessing the services or information they need.
Right. And these interruption attacks, they can be incredibly disruptive and costly.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially for businesses or organizations that rely heavily on online services.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we got interception, modification, interruption.
Uh-huh.
Is there a fourth category of attack that we should be aware of?
There is, and it's one that's becoming increasingly prevalent in the digital age.
Okay, what is it?
It's called fabrication.
Fabrication. Okay, so what does that mean?
So fabrication attacks are all about creating false information to deceive or mislead.
So it's like spreading fake news,
That's a great example. Or creating fake social media accounts to manipulate public opinion.
or like those deep fakes that we've been hearing so much about.
Exactly. Deepfakes are a perfect example of fabrication because they use artificial intelligence to create incredibly realistic but completely fake videos.
Yeah, and those could be really hard to distinguish from real videos.
Right, and that's why fabrication attacks can be so effective because they exploit our trust in information sources.
So it's about creating a false reality.
In a way, yeah. And as technology advances, these fabrication attacks are only going to become more sophisticated and harder to detect.
So it's more important than ever to be critical of the information that we're consuming.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got interception, interruption, modification, and fabrication.
These are the big four.
4 distinct types of attacks, each targeting a different aspect of information security.
And understanding these attack types is crucial for developing effective defense strategies.
Which I'm guessing is what we'll be getting into next.
Exactly. Now that we've explored the ways that information security can be compromised, let's delve into the strategies and tools that we can use to protect ourselves.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time to shift gears a bit. You know, we've talked about the core principles of information security.
Right. Confidentiality, integrity, availability, all that good stuff.
Exactly, and we've dug into the ways attackers try to exploit those principles.
Yeah, interruption, modification, fabrication, all those nasty tricks.
Right, but just knowing about the threats isn't enough, right?
No, definitely not. It's like knowing there are wolves in the forest, but not knowing how to protect yourself.
Exactly. So the big question is, how do we actually defend ourselves against these attacks?
That's the million-dollar question, and unfortunately, there's no easy answer.
No silver bullet.
Nope, no magic wand that you can just wave and suddenly be completely secure.
So what's the best approach then? Do we all need to become like cybersecurity experts?
Well, it certainly wouldn't hurt to have some technical knowledge.
Right.
But I think the most important thing is to understand the basic principles and to adopt a multi-layered approach to security.
Okay, multi-layered. So not just relying on one single thing to protect us.
Exactly. And that's where the concept of defense in depth comes in.
Defense in depth. Okay, I'm listening.
So imagine a medieval castle, right?
Okay.
You've got the moat, the drawbridge, the thick walls, the guard towers.
Yeah.
Each layer makes it harder and harder for an attacker to get to the treasure in the middle.
So it's about having multiple layers of protection.
Exactly. Even if an attacker manages to breach one layer, they still have to get through all the others.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this works, but how does that translate to the digital world?
Well, it's the same idea. Instead of just relying on a strong password or a single firewall, you want to create a system with multiple security measures.
Oh, what kind of measures are we talking about?
Well, on the technical side, you've got things like firewalls,
Right.
which act as a barrier between your network and the outside world.
Okay, so like a digital gatekeeper.
Exactly. And then you've got intrusion detection systems, which monitor network traffic for suspicious activity.
So like security cameras for your network.
Yeah, kind of. And of course, strong passwords, encryption, multi-factor authentication, all of those things add additional layers of protection.
So it's about building a fortress around your digital life.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. But defense in depth goes beyond just technical measures. Yeah, it also involves administrative controls and even physical security.
Okay, what do you mean by administrative controls?
So those are things like security awareness training for employees,
Right.
data backup procedures, incident response plans, basically all the rules and policies that govern how information is accessed, used, and shared.
So it's about creating a culture of security within an organization.
Exactly. And then there's physical security, which might seem a bit old school in the digital age.
Yeah.
But it's still important, things like securing server rooms, using access control systems to restrict entry to sensitive areas, even shredding confidential documents.
So it's about protecting information in all its forms, both digital and physical.
Exactly. And the key takeaway here is that defense in depth is not about finding a single perfect solution.
Right.
It's about creating a holistic system that addresses security from multiple angles.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
No, definitely. Security is an ongoing process.
Wow.
You need to constantly monitor, adapt, and update your defenses as new threats emerge.
So it's like tending a garden.
I like that analogy.
You need to constantly weed, prune, and nurture it to keep it healthy and thriving.
And just like a garden benefits from a diversity of plants, a strong security system benefits from a diversity of defenses.
So don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. Spread them out, create multiple layers of protection, and stay vigilant.
Well, this has been a truly fascinating deep dive into the world of information security.
It's been a pleasure.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the basic principles to the types of attacks to the strategies for defending ourselves.
And I hope our listeners feel empowered to take control of their own security.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, security is everyone's responsibility.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So keep learning, keep exploring, and stay safe out there.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications for more deep dives into the world of information.
Until next time, stay curious.